They smiled in my face while writing my name off the project. But before they stole my idea, they underestimated who I was. If you ever had your hard work stolen right in front of you, hit that subscribe, 'cause this story's for every soul they tried to silence. I still remember that Monday morning. The air in that office felt too clean, too white. Like even the walls were whispering, "You don't belong here." Bright Loop Tech, Atlanta. A room full of smart people, but somehow I was always the one they looked through, not at. I was the only black woman on that floor. And every time I walked past those glass walls, I could feel their eyes follow me, curiosity pretending to be respect. My name's Leila Washington, 29. Software engineer. Dreamer. Fighter. Maybe too idealistic for a company that loved buzzwords more than people. They called it a diverse workplace. But diversity don't mean much when you're the only one who has to prove you belong every damn day. That morning, I was preparing for the weekly pitch, the one I'd been waiting for. My project. Rooted. A community app connecting local Black-owned businesses with nearby customers. I'd spent nights building it in my tiny apartment, fueled by cheap coffee and stubborn dreams. 3 appointments was my second home. And every night, before I closed my laptop, I played that old voice note from my grandpa Elijah. When they don't give you a seat at the table, baby girl, build your own damn table. He was a mechanic his whole life. Told me coding wasn't that different. You just fix engines people can't see. So when I walked into that glass conference room, I wasn't just carrying slides. I was carrying generations. Ethan, the team lead, smiled at me like he was already calculating how to shrink me down. "Morning, Leila," he said. "Can't wait to see what you've been cooking up." His voice was sweet like sugar on poison. I smiled back, because smiling was armor. When the projector flickered on, my hands shook, but my voice didn't. Imagine a world where every Black business had a direct way to reach its community, I said. That's what Rooted is. The room went silent. Not out of dismissal, out of attention. For once, they were actually listening. I saw Ethan nodding too fast. Slide after slide, I showed them my dream. Color palettes, features, market impact. For the first time, I felt seen. When I finished, the room clapped, polite, corporate, but real enough to make my chest swell. Ethan leaned forward. "That's impressive. Leila, maybe we can explore this under the team's next project cycle." Next project cycle. That's corporate language for, "We'll rename it and take it from you." Still, I smiled again. After the meeting, people nodded at me like I'd done something unusual. Ethan came by my desk later, resting his hand on the partition like he owned it. "Hey, great work again," he said. "This could be really big if we play it right." I asked. "We?" He chuckled. "Of course, that's how innovation works, right?" I laughed, but inside, something cracked. That night, he messaged me on Slack. "Leila, can you send me your deck and mock-ups? I'll share them with management." My fingers hovered. I wanted to say no, but in that world, a Black woman saying no becomes a problem. So I sent it. I didn't know I was handing him the knife he'd used to cut my name out. 3 days later, there was a buzz about some new project proposal. No one said what it was until the invite hit my inbox. All hands. Project Connect. Presentation by Ethan Grant. Connect. My concept. My title. My soul. I stared at the screen, heart pounding so loud I could hear it. And then I heard my grandpa's voice again. People can copy your blueprint, baby girl, but they can't rebuild your soul. I whispered. Then they're about to find out what mine's made of. Sevens. That's the moment everything shifted. I wasn't just defending a project anymore. I was defending my name, my worth, and every woman who's ever watched someone else get credit for her work. Because sometimes, revenge isn't about payback. It's about proof. And I was about to prove exactly who built the dream. Sevens. They smiled while stealing my idea. They didn't know I was rooted. They stood there, clapping for a man presenting my work, my code, my design, my blood. And all I could think was, so this is what betrayal looks like in a suit. If you've ever watched someone take what you built and smile about it, subscribe right now, because this one's for you. The conference room was colder that morning. Even the air conditioner sounded smug. Everyone was gathered for Ethan's big presentation, Project Connect. I sat in the back, pretending to take notes, my heart whispering, "Don't lose it. Don't let them see you break." The lights dimmed, the screen lit up, and there it was. My color palette, my user flow, my damn slogan. But now it had a new name. Ethan spoke with that same polished voice, confident and fake as a TV preacher. Our goal, he said, is to build stronger connections between communities and small businesses. My breath caught. The words were mine, every single one. The same phrasing from my slides, down to the comma. He even used my demo clip, just changed the logo. The room clapped. Loud. The VP nodded like he'd just witnessed genius. Ethan smiled, soaking it in. And I sat there, fingers digging into my notebook, nails pressing crescents into paper. My chest burned. Rage, shame, both. A part of me wanted to stand up right there and shout, "That's my idea." But another voice whispered, my grandpa's again, "Don't fight fire with noise. Fight it with truth." When the meeting ended, Ethan walked past me like nothing happened. "You were quiet today," he said. "You okay?" My throat locked. I smiled, a slow, steady smile that scared even me. "Perfect," I said, because I realized something in that moment. If they wanted my idea, they could have it, but they couldn't control my story. That night, I sat in my apartment, lights off, laptop open. I replayed the meeting in my head over and over, every fake laugh, every stolen line. And then it hit me. They'd buried me under silence. So I needed noise. Real noise. I opened Rooted, the real version, my version, and hit record. My voice trembled but didn't break. My name is Leila Washington. I built this app to empower local Black businesses because our stories matter. And this is Rooted. I posted the video on TikTok. I didn't tag the company. Didn't name names. Just truth. By morning, 50 views. By noon, 400. By the end of the day, 2 million. People started tagging me. This is what Black brilliance looks like. Protector. They always try to steal from us, but we louder now. My inbox blew up. Journalists wanted interviews. Black tech creators offered support. The company went silent. too silent. The next day, HR called me in. "Leila," they said, "your recent post has created some confusion." I smiled. Truth usually does. They shifted in their seats. "We need you to remove it. It reflects poorly on the company." I leaned forward. "You mean it reflects reality?" Their faces froze. "We'll have to discuss your position," they said. I stood up. "Discuss all you want." I already found my voice. "Sevens." As I walked out, I felt that same clean, cold air, but it didn't choke me this time. It felt like freedom. They thought they could steal my work and silence me. But they forgot. Roots grow back stronger when you try to cut them. When they tried to erase me, they didn't know I was written in fire. They wanted quiet, but I became a storm. And if you've ever had to burn down silence just to be heard, this story's for you. By the next morning, everything had changed. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Mentions, messages, emails, news alerts. Black woman exposes corporate theft. My face was on blogs, in threads, on timelines I didn't even know existed. The video I made in my living room, bare-faced, wearing my old hoodie, was now headline material. The kind of fire you can't contain once it catches oxygen. But I didn't post it to go viral. I posted it to breathe. At first, I was scared. That kind of attention isn't light, it burns. Some people praised me, called me brave. Others called me bitter. She's making it about race. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. The internet loves drama but forgets pain. Every notification was both validation and venom. Still, deep down, I knew this was bigger than me. It wasn't just about a stolen idea. It was about every Black woman who had ever been told to smile through injustice. By the end of the week, Rooted Truth was trending on Twitter. People were remixing my video, making duets, creating art from my quote, "Fight with truth, not noise." A student in Detroit wrote, "Ms. Washington, you made me want to code." I cried when I read that. Not the soft kind of cry. The kind where your soul shakes loose. My grandpa used to say, "When the world finally listens, make sure you say something worth hearing." And I guess I had. Then came the email. Request for interview, Morning Wave News. A national platform. My heart skipped. I called my best friend Tasha, screaming through the phone. "Girl, they want me on TV." She laughed. "They better, after stealing your stuff." But when the excitement settled, fear crept in. I knew once I stepped in front of those cameras, there was no going back, no hiding, no undoing. I wasn't just Leila the engineer anymore. I was Leila the headline. The next morning, I stood backstage under hot studio lights. A producer adjusted my mic. "You okay?" she asked. I smiled, but my hands were shaking. The host, a middle-aged Black woman with eyes full of fire, walked over. "Don't let them twist your truth," she whispered. "Say it like you mean it." Sevens. When the cameras rolled, I told my story. All of it. How Rooted was born out of love for my community. How I watched my own company take what I built and try to bury my name. How every time I walked into that office, I carried my grandfather's words with me, and how I refused to disappear quietly. The audience clapped when I said, "They didn't steal my idea, they just woke up my purpose." That clip hit 10 million views overnight. The company's PR team panicked. statements, emails. We take these allegations seriously. Corporate language is always allergic to truth. Meanwhile, their investors started calling. Why is this woman on national TV saying you took her work? Suddenly, they wanted to clarify. Sevens. 2 days later, they called me again. This time, not HR, corporate legal. Leila, we'd like to discuss a resolution. I laughed. You mean a payout? We prefer the term settlement, they said. In exchange for taking down your posts. My blood boiled. You think this is about money? Silence on their end. I leaned closer into the phone. You can't buy back integrity. I hung up. That night, my doorbell rang. A package. No return label. Inside, a printed email. My original concept proposal for Rooted, time-stamped 6 months before Connect ever existed. Attached was an anonymous note. You didn't hear this from me, but you deserve justice. My breath caught. Someone inside the company had sent it. Proof. Real proof. I stared at the document like it was holy. Because in that moment, it was. The next morning, I sent it to the journalist from Morning Wave. She called within minutes. Leila, this changes everything. I nodded, tears in my eyes. No, I said. It reveals everything. By noon, the exposé was live. Bright Loop accused of stealing black woman's app idea. Screenshots, memos, my proposal, their copy. The internet exploded again, this time louder. Politicians tweeted. Tech leaders spoke out. Even celebrities. Rooted truth became rooted justice. Ethan tried to issue a statement. We collaborated as a team. The comments roasted him alive. One reply said, funny how the only team member missing from credit is the woman who built it. The fire wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to everyone who'd ever been erased. Then came the moment I'll never forget. My old manager, Denise, texted me. Turn on Channel 4. I did. There it was, a public press conference. Bright Loop's CEO stood at a podium, reading from a sheet. We acknowledged that Leila Washington's work was the foundation for our recent prototype. We sincerely apologize and have initiated a review of our internal practices. The words sounded rehearsed. Corporate, hollow. But then, out of nowhere, the CEO said something that made me stop breathing. Effective immediately, Project Connect will be discontinued. We will instead partner with Ms. Washington to launch her original project, Rooted. Sevens. I dropped my phone. My knees gave out. I laughed and cried at the same time, because somehow, against every odd, the truth had come home. When I met with them later, their faces were all stiff smiles and corporate fear. They offered funding, partnership, public acknowledgement. I accepted, but on one condition. No boardrooms, I said. We're launching Rooted from the community, with the people it was built for. The room went quiet. They nodded. 3 months later, Rooted officially launched. Crowdfunding blew past expectations. Black-owned businesses signed up by the hundreds. The app became more than tech. It became movement. I stood on stage at the launch event, mic in hand, looking at the faces in the crowd. Elders, students, creators, families. My grandpa would have loved this. I said, Rooted isn't just an app. It's a reminder. They can steal your work, but they can't steal your why. They tried to bury me. They didn't know I was a seed. They thought firing me would end my story. But what they didn't know is that sometimes, when you lose everything, you finally see what's real. The morning I walked into that startup, the air felt different. No polished walls, no glossy floors, just raw energy, like something was being born. It smelled like burnt coffee and ambition. Young faces everywhere. Most of them looked like me. For the first time in years, I wasn't the only black woman in the room. That alone felt revolutionary. "You're Leila Washington, right?" a voice asked. I turned. A girl, maybe 24, stood there clutching a tablet. Nervous, but eyes bright. "I'm Naya. I read about your old project. The one they stole." She hesitated on the word stole. I smiled. "Yeah, that one." She looked down, then whispered, "They said you disappeared. But you're here. That gives me hope." I didn't know it then, but that moment, that little spark in her voice, would change everything. At first, I kept my head low. I'd learned the hard way that in tech, when a black woman speaks too loudly, they call it attitude. So I let my work do the talking. Long nights. Cheap takeout. Code lines like veins on a digital body I was trying to bring to life. Every click felt like reclaiming a piece of what was taken. One evening, after everyone left, I stayed back. The city lights outside blurred through the window like wet paint. I opened the old folder, my idea V1, the same prototype they'd stolen. I stared at the screen for a long time. In the reflection, I saw my grandpa's face. His voice, rough and deep, came back to me like a song carried by wind. "Baby, when they steal your song, sing it louder." "Sevens," I whispered to the empty room. "Okay, Grandpa, let's sing." Sevens. From that night on, I rebuilt everything from scratch. Not for revenge, but for rebirth. I called the new version Project Phoenix. It wasn't just an app now. It was a statement. A digital space designed to connect underrepresented creators, giving them ownership of their work, a way to make sure no one could ever silence their light again. Nia became my right hand. She was young, but her ideas burned bright. One day she said, "Miss Leila, why do you always double-check the contracts yourself?" I laughed. "Because I learned what happens when you trust people who smile too much." She nodded slowly. "You mean?" "The ones who say they believe in diversity but still don't believe in you?" I looked at her. And damn, that hit deep. Exactly. Sevens. As the weeks passed, our small team became a family. Every Friday we blasted music, sometimes gospel, sometimes Kendrick. There was laughter, energy, chaos. It felt alive. But beneath it, I knew if this project went public, the world would remember what they did to me. And they wouldn't like that. One afternoon, I got a call. The number was private. When I answered, that old familiar voice slid through the speaker like poison. "Leila, it's Patrick. Remember me?" Patrick, my old boss. The man who fired me. My chest tightened. "What do you want?" He chuckled. "Heard you're playing with fire again. Word of advice? Stay quiet this time. You don't want to make enemies." Again. My hand shook, but my voice didn't. Patrick, the thing about fire, right? It spreads. I hung up. My heart was racing, but I felt alive. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked the empty streets, neon lights flickering over puddles, and thought about Grandpa again. He used to fix radios in his garage, said he liked bringing broken things back to life. He'd say, "Every wire got memory, every circuit got soul. You just gotta listen long enough." I realized that's what I was doing. Listening to my own broken circuits, rewiring, healing. 3 months later, our prototype was ready. Nia was trembling as we prepared the upload. "Are you sure?" she asked. "If we post this, there's no turning back." I smiled. That's the point. At midnight, we launched it. A 90-second demo, raw, unfiltered, ours. I didn't expect much. Maybe a few hundred views. By morning, it hit 2 million. By the next day, 10 million. Celebrities shared it. News outlets called it the future of creative freedom. And right there, in every article, every headline, they said my name. Leila, Washington. My inbox exploded. Investors, journalists, strangers saying they finally saw themselves in me. For the first time, the story wasn't about what was stolen, it was about what was reborn. Nia burst into my office, phone in hand, eyes wide. "Miss Leila, we're trending worldwide. Hashtag Phoenix Movement. People are calling it a revolution." I stared at the screen. The numbers kept rising, but what really hit me was the comments. Hundreds of young Black creators saying, "This is the first time I feel seen." I felt tears slip down my face. Grandpa's words echoed again. "Don't let them own your light." Since that night, I went back to that old office building, the one where it all began. It was empty now, just glass and echoes. I stood in that same conference room where Patrick once told me I'd never make it. My reflection looked different, older, stronger, free. I whispered, "You were wrong." Sevens. When I walked out, the city lights looked brighter than ever. I thought about Nia, about all the other voices still waiting to be heard. And I knew this wasn't just my win. It was ours. The rebirth wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming power through truth. They stole my idea, but I turned it into a movement. They say the higher you rise, the louder the silence before the storm. Mine came in the form of a letter. Thick paper. Cold words. Washington versus Horizon Technologies. They were suing me for intellectual property theft. I laughed at first, because how do you steal something that's yours? But then I felt the chill. They had money, lawyers, power. I had the truth, and a movement that refused to die quietly. The next morning, news broke. Headlines everywhere. Disgraced ex-employee accused of stealing tech she claims was stolen from her. Funny how they twist it, right? Black woman builds something. It's called luck. White man steals it. It's called leadership. The calls didn't stop. My mother cried on the phone, saying, "Baby, don't let them drag you like that again." Nia stormed into my office, holding her phone, eyes wide. "Miss Leila, look at this. They're saying we used confidential code from Horizon." I took her phone. There it was, screenshots, fake timestamps, fabricated proof. They were framing us. I looked at her and said, That's how fear works. When they can't silence you, they try to stain you. Zats. The next weeks felt like war. Lawyers in suits walked around like vultures. My inbox flooded with interview requests. Some wanted to help. Most just wanted blood. I turned them all down. The media didn't deserve my story yet. They only deserved the truth when I was ready to tell it. In my way. But behind closed doors, I was scared. There were nights I couldn't sleep, sitting by the window, city lights flickering like Morse code. I'd whisper, "Grandpa, I'm tired." And somehow, his voice always came back, "When you're tired, baby, that's when you dig deeper." 7. The hearing was set for Friday, 9 a.m. Courtroom 4B. I'll never forget that morning. I wore the same black suit I had on the day they fired me. Symbolic. A reminder that the woman they tried to erase was still standing. Cameras flashed as I walked in. Reporters shouted, "Leila, do you regret going public? Are you afraid of losing?" I didn't answer. I just looked straight ahead. Inside, it was cold. The Horizon team sat on one side, a wall of gray suits and fake smiles. On the other, me and my small team. Nia squeezed my hand under the table. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "you already changed the game." Sevens. Their lawyer spoke first, slick, rehearsed, dripping arrogance. "Your Honor, Miss Washington's product is a direct copy of Horizon's proprietary software. We have evidence of her unauthorized access." I almost laughed. When it was our turn, my lawyer, a black woman named Angela who'd seen too many of these rooms, stood tall. "Your Honor, Horizon is not the victim here. My client is the originator of the concept in question. We have timestamps, early drafts, and most importantly, the original design video recorded years ago." The courtroom buzzed. "Video?" the judge asked. Angela nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. Recorded the week before Miss Washington's termination." They played it. On the big screen, there I was, younger, nervous, standing in that same conference room. My voice shook, but my eyes burned bright. "This project," I said in the clip, "is about giving creators control over their ideas, so no one can steal their light." Then came Patrick's voice, dismissive, sharp. "Leila, that's cute, but this isn't a charity. Be realistic." The clip ended. Silence filled the room. Even the judge leaned back. For a moment, time froze. I looked at Patrick. His jaw was tight. He knew what that meant. The next headline wrote itself. "Leila Washington's old footage changes everything." Overnight, the internet flipped. #they tried to steal her trended at #1. Celebrities spoke out. Journalists apologized. People flooded our inbox, saying, "We believe you now." But truth doesn't erase scars. It just gives them meaning. And as sweet as that vindication felt, I couldn't shake the ache of how far they went to destroy a woman like me. A week later, Horizon offered a settlement. Millions. They said it would end the drama. I looked at the number on the paper, then back at Angela. She raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" I nodded. "Money won't fix what they broke. I'm not here to cash out. I'm here to call them out." We refused. That same night, I went live on social media. First time ever. No script. Just my face, Raw, tired, real. They said I stole, I began, voice low. But what they stole was bigger. They stole the chance for little black girls to believe they could build something without it being taken. So no, I won't settle. Because this isn't just my fight. It's for everyone who ever got told they were too loud, too bold, too much. Comments flooded in, hearts, fire emojis, tears. Millions watched. Within hours, Stand with Leila hit every platform. Days later, the court dismissed the case. Insufficient evidence. Patrick resigned. Horizon's stock plummeted, but I didn't celebrate. I just sat in my office, lights off, watching the rain hit the window. I thought of Grandpa again, fixing that old radio, humming blues songs about freedom and pain. I whispered, "We did it, Grandpa." But damn, it shouldn't have to be this hard. 7s. When I stepped outside, Nia was waiting by the door. "They're calling you a hero," she said. I shook my head. "I'm just a woman who got tired of being quiet." She smiled. "That's what makes you one." I laughed, soft but real. Weeks later, I stood on stage at a tech conference, the same event that once rejected me as a non-technical female. The lights were blinding, but I didn't flinch. I looked at the crowd, thousands of faces watching. I took a deep breath and said, "You can own a patent, but you'll never own my truth." The room erupted. Cameras flashed. But in that moment, I wasn't thinking about fame or revenge. I was thinking about every person who'd ever been underestimated, and about the promise I made to my grandpa long before any of this began, to never let them own my light. They thought victory was theirs before it even began. They thought taking everything from me would leave me broken, silent, forgotten. But sometimes the storm doesn't destroy you, it wakes you. I stepped into the auditorium, neon lights bouncing off the glass ceiling, hundreds of eyes fixed on me, the room buzzing with whispers, half supportive, half doubting. My heart raced, but I kept my chin high. Behind me, the demo was loaded, ready. Every pixel, every line of code, every feature screamed months of sleepless nights, of battles fought in silence. And there she was, Nia, my protege, my reflection, the girl I had lifted up. Her eyes avoided mine, flicking to the CEO I once called Patrick, the man who tried to erase me from existence. Something in the way she carried herself made my stomach twist. They called the session Innovation Showcase. Horizon Technologies sat at the front row, smug, expecting applause for their fake claim. Patrick smirked when he saw me, leaning back like he owned the world. I felt a pulse of anger, but it was controlled, simmering. When they asked me to speak, I stepped forward. My voice was steady, but deep, full of the fire my grandfather had instilled in me years ago. This project is not about them. It's about reclaiming what was taken, about proving that when your light is stolen, you burn brighter, louder, and unstoppable. The crowd leaned in. Phones lifted. Cameras flashed. I pressed play on the demo. Nia's eyes widened as she watched. I watched her. She hesitated. And then I saw it, the brief flicker of guilt. Midway through, Patrick interrupted, standing up, face red. "You have no right to show this. That's proprietary." The murmurs grew. The tension thickened. I didn't flinch. Proprietary? Only in their minds. In reality, every note, every line of code, Every idea is mine. They tried to take it, but truth has a way of coming back. The audience erupted with whispers and then applause, slowly swelling into a roar. And Nia. She swallowed hard, tears threatening, realizing the scale of what we'd built together and how her choices had almost undone it. After the public clash, the backstage confrontation came. Nia cornered me, voice shaking. I didn't mean to betray you. I thought they'd protect me. I looked at her, anger and empathy tangled together. You gave them a key to my world, Nia. But this storm? It's bigger than fear, bigger than betrayal. We rebuild from truth, not shortcuts. She nodded, tears streaking her face. I'm sorry, Miss Leila. I just wanted to help. I touched her shoulder, feeling the weight of mentorship, of mistakes, of growth. Then learn, and don't repeat them. That's all I ask. Sevens. The fallout was immediate. Social media lit up. People had caught wind of Nia's temporary betrayal. Some criticized, some supported. But the movement had grown too strong to falter. By morning, trending hashtags included Phoenix Unbreakable, Truth Prevails, and Leila Washington. Emails poured in. Investors who had hesitated reached out. Creators from around the world shared their work, seeking guidance and protection. Every comment, every message reinforced one undeniable truth. We were more than an app, more than a project. We were a statement. Days later, I received an anonymous package at the office. Inside, a small tape recorder with a note. Listen. I pressed play. Grandpa's voice filled the room. Baby, storms teach us more than calm ever could. When the sky falls, you learn which roots run deepest. Remember, what's stolen is only temporary. What you hold in truth lasts forever. I sat back, eyes closed, letting his words sink into the marrow of me. Every fight, every betrayal, every sleepless night, they were not wasted. They were my foundation. Then came the final challenge. Horizon filed for an emergency injunction, trying to block the app. Their lawyers were vicious, their strategy ruthless. The night before the court appearance, I stayed up, reviewing every line of code, every timestamp, every recorded conversation. Nia sat beside me, silent, a candle burning between us. Do you think we can survive this? She whispered. I smiled, exhausted but resolute. We don't just survive. We rise. And when we rise, the world will see everything we've built. Zevins. Court day. Packed room. Cameras everywhere. Judges, journalists, creators. I walked in with Nia and the team. Patrick was there, looking smaller than ever. The judge asked for our defense. Angela, my lawyer, delivered with the calm precision of a conductor. Your Honor, this project is the original creation of Ms. Washington. We have incontrovertible evidence, timestamps, prototypes, witnesses, and above all, a movement of creators who can testify to her integrity. The evidence rolled, and with each clip, Patrick's smirk faded. The courtroom erupted when we presented user testimonials from young Black creators who had been empowered by the platform. The energy was electric. People were standing, clapping, some crying. Nia looked at me, whispering, "We did it." I held her hand tightly, feeling the culmination of every battle, every storm. Hours later, the verdict. In our favor. Injunction denied. Project Phoenix lives. Patrick's team was humiliated. Horizon's reputation cratered. But I didn't smile. Victory felt strange, bitter and sweet, heavy with all the battles that had brought me here. We walked out of the courthouse, and I realized the storm wasn't over. It had merely passed, leaving the sky open for light. That evening, I returned to my grandfather's porch in my mind. The old radio sat in the corner of my memory, humming. I whispered to the empty air, "We survived, Grandpa." But this isn't just about me anymore. I could almost hear him chuckle, rough and deep. "Baby, sometimes the storm shows you who you fight for. Never forget that." I closed my eyes, letting the rain wash over the windows behind me, feeling both the pain of betrayal and the triumph of truth. I looked at Nia, my team, every young creator watching, and said, softly but firmly, I didn't just win back my idea, I won back our voice. The night ended quietly, with the city lights reflecting in puddles. For the first time in months, I felt peace. Not the loud, empty peace of a fleeting win, but the deep, bone-deep peace of knowing that no storm, no betrayal, and no thief could ever take what is held in truth. They said the storm had passed. But storms leave marks, traces of wind and rain that linger long after the sky clears. I walked into my office the morning after the court victory, and the first thing I noticed was silence. Heavy, loaded silence, like the city itself was holding its breath. The inbox exploded as soon as I opened my laptop. Messages, emails, DMs, all of them telling the same story. Support, awe, disbelief. Creators from across the country, young Black women and men, reaching out to say, "We saw you. We believe you. You gave us hope." I paused, scrolling through hundreds of messages. Some were angry, some were tears, some just raw admiration. My heart ached and soared at the same time. It was more than an app. It was a movement. Nia walked in, quiet at first, her eyes avoiding mine. I didn't need words. She placed a small stack of papers on my desk, apologies she had drafted, letters she had written, statements of reflection. She started, voice trembling. I didn't understand. I thought I had to play their game to survive. I looked at her, feeling the weight of mentorship, betrayal, and forgiveness all at once. "You're learning," I said softly. "And this is why we survive, because we hold on to truth, not shortcuts. You'll never forget this lesson, Nia. I promise you that." She nodded, tears streaking down her face. The press kept coming. Every headline a new battle. Leila Washington triumphs over corporate theft. Black woman reclaims her voice. From fired employee to tech icon. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Some calls were investors, some journalists, some old friends I hadn't heard from in years. And then, the call that made me pause, a voice I recognized instantly, deep and gravelly. It was one of the early investors who had walked away when Patrick promised them the moon. "Leila," he said, "I was wrong. Can we talk? I want to be part of this now." I took a breath. "You want in after everything?" I asked. "After seeing the truth?" He hesitated, then said, "After seeing you fight." I smiled softly, realizing that truth and perseverance were the only currency that mattered. The community I had built, though, was the real victory. Young creators, many from neighborhoods where the odds were stacked against them, shared their projects on the platform, inspired by what we had built. I watch tutorials, music apps, educational programs pop up, all running on Project Phoenix, all with my fingerprints, but also theirs. The feeling was overwhelming. This was legacy, but it wasn't mine alone. It belonged to every person who ever felt erased or underestimated. Even the office staff began to see the change. People who had doubted, whispered, or ignored me now approached with respect, with curiosity, even with admiration. Patrick's resignation sent ripples through the tech world, and Horizon Technologies struggled to regain credibility. But the most important ripple was human, in the hearts of those watching, those learning, those finding courage to create and speak up. One evening, Nia and I stayed late, reviewing new submissions from users. The office was quiet, but the city lights outside glimmered like stars on water. She looked at me, tentative. "Do you ever get scared that it could all go wrong again?" I laughed, soft but real. Scared? Sure. But fear is part of the process. Every storm teaches you how deep your roots really go. And our roots are strong. We watched the latest demo together, nodding at each innovation, each spark of creativity. The movement wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Then came a moment I hadn't expected. A young woman from Detroit sent a video of herself crying as she showed how Project Phoenix helped her finally pitch her idea to a major publisher. She said, "I watched you fight, and I knew I could too." My chest tightened. Tears came, uninvited. That was it. This was the real victory. Not the court, not the headlines, not the investors, but the impact. The echoes of our struggle reverberating in lives, in communities, in futures. I went home that night, exhausted but awake with purpose. Sat on my porch, imagined Grandpa's old voice, soft but full of authority. "Baby, the storm doesn't define you. What you build after the storm does." I whispered back into the empty air. "We're building it. Grandpa. All of us." The radio hummed softly in my mind, blues and gospel intertwined like memories and promises. I felt the fire inside, warm and steady, knowing that this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all of us, a generation of creators, dreamers, and believers who refused to be silenced. And so, the aftermath was not quiet. It was alive. It was thriving. It was messy and beautiful. Every email, every demo, every live stream, every thank you from a creator was a reminder that our voices mattered. Nia came by one last time that night, placing her hand on my shoulder. "You changed everything," she said. I nodded, tears hidden in the shadows. We all changed it. And the work is just beginning. 7. I looked out at the city lights again, a calm after the storm. This was the rise after the fall, the victory after betrayal, the proof that the fight, when anchored in truth and perseverance, echoes far beyond the individual. And as I closed my eyes that night, I whispered to myself and the world, "We are not just survivors. We are architects of our own voices, builders of a legacy that no storm can wash away." 7. They say the storm leaves you changed, but what they don't tell you is how it teaches you who you are underneath all the noise. I've walked through fire, betrayal, and doubt, and I can tell you now, nothing breaks a soul that holds truth close. Sitting here tonight, reflecting on everything, I realized that the real victory wasn't the courtroom, the headlines, or even Project Phoenix itself. It was the honesty in my heart, the choices I refused to compromise, and the people I lifted along the way. I think back to Grandpa's voice, the gravelly wisdom echoing through years. Baby, when you fight, make sure you're fighting for what's right, and never let the world make you small. That voice became my compass, and through it, I discovered that integrity is louder than applause, brighter than any spotlight. Looking at Nia, at the community of creators we've nurtured, I see what true leadership looks like. It's not about control. It's not about power. It's about trust, guidance, and believing in the potential of others to rise alongside you. The real lesson is that success without truth is empty, and talent without purpose is fleeting. I've learned that when you choose honesty, when you choose to build rather than steal, when you choose to elevate others rather than step over them, you create a ripple that can't be contained. Every young Black creator who found their voice through our platform, every person who was told, no, you can't, now has a chance to prove otherwise. Their victories are mine, and mine are theirs. I can still feel the sting of betrayal, the moments when Nia faltered, when Patrick thought he had erased me, but those moments are lessons carved into the bedrock of my spirit. They reminded me that courage isn't absence of fear, it's the refusal to let fear dictate your path. Every late night, every sleepless morning coding, testing, explaining, mentoring, that effort, that authenticity, is what builds legacy. It's what keeps a community thriving. I look at the world differently now. I don't just see technology or apps. I see opportunity for people who have been silenced, overlooked, underestimated. I see a way to transform hurt into empowerment, doubt into determination. And this is the part I want everyone to understand. Your story, your struggle, your truth, they matter. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't sell your integrity for temporary gain. Don't trade mentorship for selfish ambition. Because what you hold in truth, in courage, in resilience, becomes a lighthouse for others. The young woman in Detroit who cried over her first pitch, the teenage coder in Atlanta who finally launched her app, the college student in Chicago who realized she could lead, these aren't just success stories. They're proof that honesty, hard work, and community can rewrite destinies. Community isn't a buzzword. It's a lifeline. And when you invest in it, when you fight for it, when you lead with your heart, you transform more than yourself. You transform the world around you. I've seen creators connect, collaborate, and elevate each other because they believed in truth. And that belief is contagious. I've watched people who never thought they could matter stand tall, speak up, and demand space they deserve. That's what I fight for every day. That's why I mentor, why I guide, why I show up. Not for recognition, not for fame, but because the next generation deserves to know their voice matters. So here's the takeaway, the heartbeat of this journey. Live authentically, work diligently, and protect the community you belong to. Fight for your ideas, yes, but also fight for each other. Celebrate every small victory as loudly as the big ones. And when betrayal hits, and it will, remember, your truth is stronger than their lies. Hold on to it. Nurture it. Let it grow into something that outlives storms, lawsuits, and doubts. And to every young Black creator watching this, I say this: you are not alone. The fire inside you, the spark that makes you different, is a gift. Protect it. Share it. Build on it. Lift others as you climb. Because the strength of one is amplified by the power of many, and the legacy of one can ignite generations. I promise you, what you do with honesty and purpose matters far beyond what you can see today. We've come too far to stay silent. Hit that if you feel this story. Comment your name. Let's build this wall of strength together. Sevens. Before I sign off tonight, I want to leave you with a thought, a call to action. Trust your vision, stand for truth, and lift as you rise. Subscribe, connect, and share this story. Let the world hear the echoes of resilience, integrity, and community. Let every young Black mind out there know your voice is powerful, your story is worth telling, and your impact is limitless. Because together, we are unstoppable. Together, we are a movement. And together, we will rise every single time